Welcome to this Thursday episode edition live stream of the Apologia Center YouTube channel. What's up, folks? We'll wait for some people to come in here, and I think I made a couple of clarifying statements on Discord, but also a couple of weeks ago, and I want to re-emphasize that as to the direction and where we're going with the channel and what we're doing and why you haven't seen me. Like, I was supposed to stream last night, couldn't do it. Tuesday I streamed, but the stream was taken down because Apple flagged me for that video that I showed almost immediately. That's like the quickest copyright thing I've seen. And so it's not a copyright monetization thing they've done where you can't monetize it, which is fine. It's that they've blocked the entire video. I can't show their video, even though I'm not showing it for the purposes that Apple put it out for. Whatever, I don't know. So yeah, say hi, say what's going on, drop a little like button hit thingy as we get into this today. I have decided not to have an interview today. That's because I haven't set up my next list of guests just yet, and I decided we'll just do a call-in thingamajig. The link is dropped there, so you guys are more than welcome to call in. I think we had a great conversation on Tuesday. That portion of the conversation with the American Cuban, I'm going to edit out and post as a separate video because I thought it was a great conversation. I hope so did you. If you watched that live or got the chance to watch it before Apple took that one down. I mean, YouTube took it down, but it's Apple's copyright thing. That was quick, man. Like, I didn't know things can happen that quickly. By the time I had edited out the section that I had done on Apple, and it had like rendered and I was about to post it, it just got shut down. The longer video took like a couple of hours more for them to shut it down. But it is what it is. Here we are. This day, gathered together, dearly beloved. Got my mate. That was bitter. Do we currently live in the end times? Yes, we currently live in the end times. Because we've been living in the end times since the second century. Sorry, second century. Since the first century. We've been living in the end times since in the book of Acts it says the Holy Spirit shall come upon all people in these last days. So we have been living in the end times. Now, it seems to me that you mean something else with that question. Do you know much about the Orthodox Church, Arthur? No, I don't. I can't say that I do. General knowledge you probably have, not an expert on it. I have a number of friends that are Orthodox. I have a number of friends that actually went from being Protestant to Orthodox. I think I have 3, if I'm not mistaken. That's what it is, Jerome. In these last days. I'm going to just change stuff around and see how this... It's an excellent start, man. Welcome. Link is dropped, guys. Y'all can call in. I'd prefer that. I have had some issues with my voice in the last week or two, and I think that is because I've done quite a bit of speaking. Hey, Myth Vision. Myth Vision's going after Ruslan quite a bit, I realized. I think they're chasing clout. But my personal opinion, I don't know the Myth Vision guy personally. I forget what his name is. But he's posted a number of videos recently about Ruslan. And he's got one coming out today. He's doing a live stream at 2:15. So in like 6 minutes. And he's tagging Ruslan. I think he's trying to pick a fight with Ruslan or something. Oh, what's up, Carl? How you doing, man? Do you think every non-Christian worldview comes from Satan, specifically Islam and evolution? No, I do not think that. I do not think every non-Christian worldview comes from Satan. No. Some of it's just bad ideas that human beings come up with. And it's not that I don't think that. It doesn't seem to me that the Bible does that. The Bible doesn't say, oh, yeah, here's a thing that's satanic. Oh, here's an idea you have that's bad or wrong or whatever we can like disagree about. Oh, must be from Satan. Just don't think that's the case. Excuse me, by the way. I have, my mom was in Armenia and came back. And she brought me some stuff. So, excuse me for indulging myself in eating some of this stuff. If you know what this is, it's sitting in front of me and I'm drooling over it, so I have to have it. For those who know what it is, you can put it in the chat. He said, is that Basturma? Oh gosh, no. Dude. Alpha, you lose Armenian points. I just took one of your Armenian badges away. And I just gave it to Arnold. Because he knows what's up. Yeah, well, if some of you guys are sitting there and they're like, yeah, Arthur, I wish I had that right there. Well, hey, too bad. I like the finer pleasures of life. Okay? This is the real stuff. Not that commercialized dye that most of you guys are used to eating and you grew up on. That's because you wanted to give up on the finer things of life. So I don't know, man. Like, I like classical music now, and I like eating these sorts of things. Like, I'm very content in life. Dressed in all black. By the way, I also think it's an offense and to refer to this as fruit roll-ups. It's disrespectful. Do you like Aram Khachataryan? No, I like Arno Babajanyan. Yes. Here, we'll wake Jerome up. I got dress shoes on right now. They're not that pointy. The lines are open, ladies and gentlemen. You can call in. Come on. See, here's the thing I don't want to do, guys. I've thought about doing this, but I've actually, like, I don't say I want to, I've decided not to do it, but for the time being, I won't. I don't want to title my live stream call-ins like, come on, you atheists, or whatever, Muslims, come on by. Like, I don't want to come at it like that because I know it'll get attention and people will probably call in. But I just sort of don't want to do that. But if I realize you guys aren't being active, now I'm going to have to do that. I think there's enough folks in here to speak about my absence as of late. Wednesday nights, I haven't done it the last couple of weeks. That's because I'm speaking at a church on Wednesdays for 6 weeks. So this was the second week so yesterday was the second week of me speaking at a church. And that's a 6-week thing. It starts at 7:30. It ends around 9. But by the time I get home, it's 9:30. Quite tired. It's not easy. Again, giving a talk for an hour or so and then taking questions and interacting with some of that stuff and then doing a live stream. So that's why I haven't done anything Wednesday nights. My schedule is also being challenged in all sorts of ways. So because it's being challenged, and I mean, there's things popping up in meetings I got to go to. Like today, I got to be at a meeting at 4:30, and I just came from a meeting. Like I went. That's partly why I'm dressed the way I am. But I was in a different city than the one I live in at 4. No, sorry, at 11:30. Did the meeting, and then came. I think yesterday I had a number of meetings in a row from each other. So I'm getting used to my new schedule. It is a new schedule, and it's impacting these streams. Not that I'm going to give these streams up. It's what I need to do. And I announced this a couple of weeks ago. I said we might need to change the streams to be at later times. I'm hoping that the Thursday streams won't be. They'll stay. The interviews will stay at 2, but it could very well be that my Tuesday streams change to like 4 p.m. That's a big possibility. Um, what else can change? The Wednesday streams depends on Wednesday night streams. I might actually change the Wednesday night streams to like a Wednesday early morning stream. So it might be at like 9 a.m. or something like that. So again, it could change, folks. Just giving you a heads up. Gave you guys a heads up a little bit ago, a number of weeks ago. But yeah. Keanu says, "Is that what you wanted though for atheists and Muslims to call?" No, I used atheists and Muslims just as an example. What I want is for the call-in times, I want people to call in. I want Christians who have questions. I want to have a conversation face to face rather than through the written word for you guys. That's why I have a call-in show. Whether somebody's a Christian or not, or Muslim or atheist, doesn't matter. I want to have a dialogue with people. That's why they're call-in shows. So yes, that is what I want. I just don't want to like, you know what I mean, like use fighting words to get attention. I just don't want to do that. Jerome thinks I should change it. The title shift would actually be funny though. Any suggestions? Anyone have any suggestions of what we could title these? They're sort of boring. By the way, they're also like, in regards to the algorithm, they're really, really boring and bad. Like the algorithm, I think, doesn't like my titles. Live Q&A, apologetics, like it's always the same title. It could mean that we change the title every single week, but to make it interesting, somebody actually in the comment section suggested that I create a playlist of all my live streams, and I thought that was a great idea, and we'll get on that. I've just done a lot of live streams. I got to go back and click through. But yes, we will create that so people can keep up with the live streams like that. Appreciate that kind of input, folks. Always do. But if you got suggestions, I don't mind it. Speaking of reaction videos, if it wasn't literally Friday right now, I'd call in to talk about the Apple video because that was hilarious. Okay, that's fine. The iPhone drops tomorrow. That doesn't drop. You can pre-order it tomorrow. You could title them after controversial topics, and people can call in and talk about those topics. You're like what? What controversial topics? Like if you don't repent, you're going to hell. Yeah.
YouTube looking for some content, and they see that circle with the zoom in, they're clicking. And then that's it. He got your click. He's got the ad roll playing. He's got it. You can stay, you can leave now. But he
Hey,
did.
it is smart. I'm not knocking it.
It's a
It's
good way to do
actually
the thumbnail. It's a slick way.
very slick, but
I've
some of
done it.
it,
I've done it a few times.
let's be real, like some of this stuff is extremely sensational. And so, for those who are curious, what I mean,
Oops.
present stories in a way that is intended to provoke public interest or excitement at the expense of accuracy. Okay. This adjective, presenting stories in a way that is intended to provoke public interest or excitement at the expense of accuracy,
I do
sensational
want
reporting of
I do
related.
want I do want to say, to give him benefit of the doubt, the YouTube algorithm, and you and I have been really noticing this lately, really like forces people into making titles and thumbnails that you might not really wanted to do,
Right.
but like you're like, what? I have the if I know that if I do it like this, I'll get 10 times the amount of views.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like I don't even really knock them for that, but
That's not even that's yeah. I mean, people will knock you no matter what. I've
yeah,
fans of mine who don't like the this will blow your mind.
I get it. I see those
Can we
texts.
get over the fact that it says this will blow your mind since I'd say 70-80% of the viewers who've never heard it really do feel like this is shocking, great, amazing information.
That's
Don't spoil the fun for everybody, right?
That's what I've noticed. Like a lot of these videos where I'll do that, I'll put like Roman religion origins is mind blowing. And some people will say, come on with the mind blowing stuff, dude. But then I'll have another person 5 minutes later say, my mind is
my
blown.
mind is
So
blown. And it's like,
it's everybody has their own way to how they look at it, you know.
yeah. And look, some people are far more read. So this is not shocking information. It might even be stuff they're like, I've known that for 10 years.
Right.
Okay. What is, I mean, why type that out? Did you need the attention since you knew this information already? Is it everybody pat the genius in the chat, on the back? Look, we all get it. Just try to let others experience things for the first time and enjoy it. And in fact, I'm coming across information that I'm certain viewers, I have such a smart following of people who watch us because they're critical thinkers. There's people who investigate, research the myths and legends and ancient literature. I'm just now coming across, and I don't know if you know this by now, Neil, but you probably do. I get excited when I discover this stuff. So I want to make this exciting as possible for more people. That is the goal.
Exactly.
And a lot of this stuff is you got to go read an article that is found, somewhere hidden on the web or a book. And so most people aren't reading
Well,
this material.
that's what what's his name from the website, what's it called? The hold on one second. Perseus Tufts.
Yeah.
That's what he said to us. He said, I like what you guys are doing because a lot of the stuff that's happening in academia is academics writing journal articles for other academics using language that most people will not understand. They're not they don't know Greek or Hebrew. Like they can't read these journals. You and I are trying to be the medium and bring it to the people who are at our level as far as like not having that academic lingo, not understanding all that stuff, but being able to like reinterpret it for people like you and me.
Right. That's because we came across this material, but the way we did, it was not packaged this way. I mean, I've looked on YouTube, you're going to find some good stuff here and there. And then there's some of this material that I've never seen packaged in a way that's for like, there's a lecture where a scholar might mention something in passing in a lecture or something. And it's like, how many people viewed that? And then you look and you're like, 700 views, 8-year-old video, 700 views, 8 years on the internet. And like, whoa, how come this is not
Because they got to change the
out there more?
thumbnail,
So,
Derek.
I made the thumbnail, of
Yeah,
course.
there you go. That's a good
And
thumbnail.
you see, I did the circle trick where I just took you closer to Ruslan's eye to point out the secret in this video that you're going to discover in the end. You won't know till you watch this whole live stream what the secret here with the eye is. There is no secret. I'm just literally saying
Let's
that
go
because
check
that's
out
the kind of stuff.
Myth Vision's videos. Okay. Let's see. Let's see what Myth Vision's thumbnails look like and whether they fit a similar category. Okay. I like his thumbnails, by the way, I should say. Scroll back a little bit. So it's very similar to the sort of stuff that Ruslan does, right? So it's similar in the sense that you get a picture, you get big giant words. Now his are in white. A lot of AI generated stuff. He's using a lot of AI generated imagery, and they look pretty sick. Okay, but for example, origins of Genesis. Assuming there are other origins of Genesis than Genesis being its own thing. But that's the point of his channel. That's what he's arguing for. My thing is that he brings in quite a bit of what I would call fringe theologians, like within the theological framework, obviously, because I'm conservative and he's not, he doesn't believe this stuff. And then just shows it to the general population, but there's no counter arguments. He never presents counter arguments to those things, at least from what I've seen. He's never presented counter arguments, right? So you can have someone like a John Dominic Crossan on. You ever had somebody who just wrote stuff against John Dominic Crossan and academically argues against John Dominic Crossan? Or do they not exist? Or once you make a faith claim, then you are no longer unbiased. But John Dominic Crossan is very unbiased because he's a legit scholar. As a matter of fact, I watched these interviews. Now, this is a guy who walked away from the faith, and I watched it a number of days ago. Probably like 2 weeks ago, I watched it. Where is it? This dude. Okay, so you can see I've watched this one, watched this one, and see this one. I think I watched another longer one. I'm not sure where it was. But so these are because I'm on Chrome. I've watched those videos because I know I watched more than that. Because I watched on my Safari. But or maybe combinations of them. This dude is somebody who's essentially claiming like Christians aren't doing serious academic work and they have a bias and they shouldn't be allowed into the university. This guy went to the same university I went to, by the way. He went to Talbot. Dr. Richard Miller. And they do e-courses together and stuff with Derek. It's fine. But if you're going to go after someone like a Ruslan, I like his I mean, everybody on YouTube essentially, like what that guy was saying, is forced to do things a certain way. Like, look at the title on this. Okay, so I watched this, you can tell. Christian apologetics is a grossly dishonest game of ignorance. Okay. Sorry. Seems like when I switched my screens, it muted itself for some awkward reason. Okay, I'll say it again. I was actually commenting on one of the videos here that said Christian apologetics is, I think you guys saw that, grossly dishonest game and all that stuff. So you got to continuously produce content. If you're doing stuff on YouTube, you got to continuously provide content. And you got to figure out, for your niche, you got to figure out for your audience, what is it really that is going to keep it going, right? So maybe like all your academic conversations aren't going to draw the crowds or whatever like that, or you're going to take clips from your videos and you're going to title them in various ways. It's just the nature of the thing. And I think Derek does the same thing from the other side. Okay. And he's bringing in, I've seen some stuff where it's like really fringe academic stuff. For example, he's got a video here. It says, fundamentalists don't understand the gospel. The gospels. Right here. Really? Why? Because this lady says so. And if I look at academia, if I look at theology, how popular is her view? Like, how many people actually hold her view? We would just go from that perspective. And is it fair for you to post a video saying fundamentalists, not some fundamentalists, not, some kind of qualifier, but fundamentalists don't understand the gospels? Like this lady does, because she's not a fundamentalist, because she's so objective on the matter. And, the rest of us don't know how to read, and we don't know how to do hermeneutics, and this stuff's not serious about our lives. So we're like so brainwashed, and we can't think broadly. Like we've never actually read some of the writings of some of these people. Like we've never read John Dominic Crossan, right? Like we've never read, what's her name? What's the other lady that? Bart Ehrman, right? We've never read, where is she? I gotta find her. She's on the bottom. I've seen him post shorts from this lady, and they're kind of nuts. In context or whatever like that, right? Paula Fredrickson. At least Ruslan is doing social commentary. Something comes out there and he's doing a commentary. You get what I'm saying? I hope I'm making sense. If I'm not making sense, tell me I'm not making sense, guys. Let's see.
But like, my mind is almost like, whose video is this? What's going on? Is there editing done? I don't know. I'm just being honest. Like, but if it was real, I would say, wow, that's interesting. What kind of phenomena causes a noise like that to happen?
That was my thoughts. Imagine it was no trumpet, no guy like on a hill or the neighborhood. When I was in Kuwait, I got woke up early in the morning and they were doing their Muslim prayer over the intercom. Like the whole city, you get like it goes through the walls. You're going to hear it. And I woke up like, what's happening? And it was just the guy down, in the hotel area was like, oh, this is normal. Every day we have morning prayer. And I'm like, whoo. But I'm curious to know if natural phenomena, if there's an explanation for why a noise might be like that. Are there natural reasons? To hype it and connect it to Revelation, which I want to get into the book and explain why. And even Michael Jones, right? He interviewed Bart Ehrman on this. Michael Jones, I got to use a Christian when I'm trying to explain to Christians. You can't trust me. You can't take my word. I'm not a Christian anymore. So anything I say on these topics just goes in one ear and out the other, or is ignored. But even Michael Jones thinks, hey, this book, is talking about stuff back in the 1st century, 2nd century. Like, this is not a book for us
that's not
today.
new news to us, Derek.
And I know a lot of
right?
Christians won't accept that.
Yeah, because they
kinda
disagree with
want
it
the end
theologically.
to be a thing that's coming.
And I agree more with Michael Jones.
Here's the sad reality about that. Christians have been saying this since the 1st century.
Yeah.
We have and then it just keeps 2nd century, early church. You know, once we get into the 3rd century, for Irenaeus, Julius Africanus, all these different popes, Pope Sylvester in the year 1000. So
Right.
every century, there's like at least 10 big theologian names that are going to say we have 10 years left, we have 5 years left, we have 30. It's always right about to happen. There's nobody comes along and says, all right, I'm thinking nobody in like the year 500, for example. I'm just going to make this hypothetical. Nope, you don't see any text of like some church father from the year 200 going, I think the year 2012 is going to be the end. No, they're always like 10 more years, 5 more years. According to Revelation, it's coming. He's coming right now.
I'm not going to make an argument to these things. Clearly, there's reasons, but whatever. They're talking about Ruslan's view that the video he made. I haven't seen this video by Ruslan that says "End times trumpet heard by millions finally caught on camera." Like I haven't seen it. Yeah, and I don't know what Ruslan's view per se is. I think he's not as premillennial as people are making him out to be. But yeah. We got a Twitch guy in here who said, is this the way you guys speak to people? You see someone, you just walk up to them, you go, Jew. Armenian. Come on, John. Come on, John Browning. Like, you could just ask me, hey, what ethnicity are you? Do you get what I mean? It's a big difference. Yeah, I'm Armenian. You want to know my ethnicity? I'm Armenian. So David's seen it. He says that video wasn't what you think about the trumpets. Yeah, again, frankly, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't care. I know the sort of stuff Ruslan produces. What I'm saying is, like, be very careful when you're throwing rocks and you stand in a glass house. Right? I'm just telling you, like, I've gone through Bible college and seminary. I've read the fringe liberal theologians, those who are on the very, very outskirts of what theological discourse looks like in regards to what I would say, what a proper view of it should be. And I've read their arguments and their books. As a matter of fact, we were required to deal and struggle through some of that stuff. Some of it's good. But so you ask a question here. Let me actually pull up a video. I think I can pull this video up. And I'll try to point you guys as to a leading question, I think, and the way this lady responds, okay?
You know, based on the way people were educated.
I gotta like get the times right. Found it. Before I do that, let me see. What is the difference between Western and Eastern Armenian? It's a linguistic difference. It's essentially the way you enunciate words. That's the difference between it's a linguistic difference. Okay. I'm essentially going to do a review of this. So this is from Myth Vision. Now, this is someone else's podcast interviewing this lady. The video is titled Fundamentalists Don't Understand the Gospels. That's a big claim. Myth Vision sent a super chat to this channel, and Deep Drinks, I think. And the lady's name is Dr. Robin Faith Walsh. And here he asks a question. I want you guys to pay attention to the way this lady answers this question. And I'll bring in my thoughts on the matter.
Myth Vision, what are a few of your favorite imitations in the gospel, Gospels to Virgil, Homer, or...
So the question is, and he's read her work, so he's familiar with it, is that he's saying that the Gospels have imitations of Virgil in them. That's the claim. Okay? So they're not, the claim isn't that they're stealing from Virgil, but they have similar sorts of stuff as Virgil.
Or any Greek sources. Can you explain why it's imitation? You de bomb.
Yes, sure. Thanks for the softball. So the thing that I argue in the article that's going to come out is that, especially in Mark, there's a tendency, sometimes it's referred to as the messianic secret, or allied to that.
So we're dealing with a subject that happens, and in the Gospel of Mark, she just mentioned it, the messianic secret being Jesus does something and then tells people, don't spread this message, essentially.
Concept, but Jesus keeps telling people, don't tell anybody who I am, on one hand, but also repeatedly in the text, no one seems to know who Jesus is. So Jesus will come in, he'll perform some kind of miracle, and everybody is, the word is thalma in Greek. Everybody is dumbfounded. So the word is thelma, she's saying, and she's going to make a linguistic connection, I think, to Virgil here. They're like going out of their minds and bewildered, and they don't understand what they've just seen, and they run away like dazed and confused. Who was that guy, right? So that happens over and over again. That term thalma happens in Virgil, happens in other writers too, but I latched on to Virgil. Okay. It's a word. It means bewildered. And it happens in Virgil and other writings. And then she's saying, so I'm latching on to Virgil. My response would be, let's just say I was bewildered legitimately. Somebody said something and I was bewildered. Would I use the word thelma? And if I did, would that be somehow connected to Virgil? Like, would that be the origins thereof if it was written down? Probably not. So I think this is a pretty weak argument to say, look, the Gospels have this, Virgil has this, Virgil predates the Gospels, must be taken from it. Correlation doesn't mean causation. It's very simple. Correlation doesn't mean causation. But we're going to put it out there. We're going to title it Fundamentalists, who I assume Derek would think within that camp, don't understand the Gospels. Virgil, and again, Homer too is operational here, but I think Virgil is the closer corollary temporally, but also in terms of the content. He has figures like Camilla come in to scenes where, she's such a subversive character because she's like a military figure, but she's a woman. I think the phrase is that, she's not concerned with the baskets of Minerva, like she's very much like this martial character. And when she will like ride into town, she's a thalma. People are dumbfounded. They're bewildered. They're almost going out of their minds. They don't know how to make sense of this person because she is such a subversive character. And so I argue that in terms of like literary construction, it seems to me that the author of the Gospel of Mark, we ascribe to this idea of thalma some kind of theological category, like messianic secret, right? There must be a theological reason nobody knows who he is. Oh, he's trying to delay his own, execution by telling people not to reveal who he is, or by instilling this kind of confusion, because if he instills this confusion, then he can delay the inevitable, like crucifixion. Sure, that could be part of what's going on, except it's very much a literary motif that you find in Virgil.
Okay, so if it's a literary motif, then you can have multiple authors using the same style of literature to communicate something. But that wouldn't mean it's taken from Virgil. That would just mean there's a literary motif and it's fine. Like, I wouldn't have any issues. Like the paper that she would produce, I assume that it's because it's an academic paper, it would be nuanced really well. And I don't think it would be that controversial in saying something like Mark is using the same literary styles or motifs that Virgil uses, but not necessarily taking it from Virgil. Even if Virgil is the creator of the literary motif, that doesn't mean the historical acts that we're talking about in Mark aren't actually the case. And she's doing that, I think, in her speech, in her answer here in this. She's not really saying it because that would be way too much for her to academically back up. She's not going to put her academic kind of credentials on the line to make a statement like that. But again, Myth Vision will take it and say, look at this. Fundamentalists don't understand the Gospels.
Right? So, like, there are characters that come in, nobody understands who they are because they're so outside of the ordinary, and people are dumbfounded and they walk away like bewildered. Who was that person? So it's just another literary motif. And then this opens up a whole other set of issues. Is the author of the Gospel of Mark reading Latin? Probably.
Okay, so now there's quite a bit of conjecture. Is the author of the Gospel of Mark reading Latin? Her response is not a yes. It's not a no. She could probably, maybe. But you got to prove that. Like you, unless we can find the same literary motif in Greek literature, then you're like, well, he doesn't need to learn Latin or read Latin or know Latin.
Based on the way people were educated, the way libraries were constructed, it opens up a whole other, again, range of possibilities for thinking.
So if we're doing historical theology of this sort, like textual criticism of this sort, one of the questions we might say is go back to, say, the second, third, fourth century and see, and I'm just shooting in the dark here, but this would be a part of our study, is to go back there and say, hey, does anybody in the second, third, fourth century accuse Mark of taking either the literary motif or taking content from Virgil? And if nobody does that, it's like you don't see it in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, let's just say. You just don't see it. Does that mean what Dr. Walsh is saying is false? No. But it probably reduces the probability of there being right. It's just the way we do historical studies.
Is it like if the Gospels were written in like ancient Chinese that if like you started quoting like the Tao?
Okay, I'm just going to stop there. My issue is not that there are scholars like Dr. Walsh out there that are making the sort of statements they are. They always have been. They always will be. I expect that from people who don't actually believe the Bible is the Word of God, and whatever justification they can bring in there. But there are counter arguments to this stuff. If we're going to, I try to the best of my abilities, I think, to deal, at least in my personal life, with counter arguments to stuff that I believe. I read atheist literature. I read scholars who really don't think the Bible's meant to be taken as seriously as Christians take it, or fundamentalists are supposed to take it, or whatever like that, or the way Christians have sort of always taken it. And you bring in this one person who's written something. By the way, you can find PhD holding scholars that have written books on like the randomest stuff on the planet. You can find individuals like that. You can find people like that, and very fringe sort of stuff. And so, here's what they believe. How come Christians don't believe this? How come atheists don't believe this? How come, whatever. Always the case. But for me, it's just hilarious to me that, I just went on YouTube today and then I see Myth Vision going after my buddy Ruslan for his thumbnails and his titles. So I'm like, dude, you do the same thing in a different sort of way. I think Ruslan's a lot more creative with his thumbnails and his titles. But you do exactly what everybody else on YouTube does. If you're throwing rocks, man, Careful, you're not standing in a glass house. I'll take calls. By the way, I know Jerome was calling in, and I didn't get to pick that up because I was in the middle of that spiel. Why don't you call back, Jerome? Yeah, right. It's like, oh, that's fundamentalists. Yeah, there's a number of opinions on this, Dave, in regards to why Jesus didn't want people to know what's going on. I think, and maybe I'll have Dr. De Silva back on, because he argues that it actually shows Jesus's motives when he does healings, and part of that is because there was individuals in the ancient world that would do good to others, and they would do it for their own fame and glory, and so they become more famous and stuff like that. And the reason why Jesus is saying don't tell anyone is because he doesn't want people thinking that he's doing it for his own selfish kind of reasons. But again, I mean, biblical scholars, even conservative, even fundamentalist biblical scholars have a right, and they do disagree on, hey, what's going on here? Why is Jesus telling people, don't tell anyone that this happened to you? Or just tell X, Y, and Z or something like that. And it's very unique, isn't it, that nobody actually listens to Jesus when he tells them not to tell anyone. They go around telling everyone. And I think Dr. De Silva's work has helped me a bit in understanding this as to why people go and tell everyone else, because they felt like it was their social responsibility, and it was just believed in culture when somebody did good to you that you told other people about the good that they did to you. And so that's why people just didn't listen to Jesus. And that you can go and find examples in the ancient world and in different literature to say, hey, here's the way people thought and viewed things to be. My 2 cents on some of that stuff. So, guys, the link is dropped in. You can call in. We can speak about this subject. We can speak about other subjects, or whatever and however you want to have that conversation. Again, Jerome, I'm sorry I didn't pick up that call. Not because I'm ignoring you, brother. Just because I was in the middle of it. I actually almost hit answer, and then you hung up on me. You clicked on me, bro. So don't be surprised. And again, for me, I don't have an issue with having a thumbnail that's got whatever catchy title. People are going to click on it. So don't be surprised that I do that stuff. Now, for me, it would be a lot of there's like an ethical line there that would bother. There's certain things that would bother me. Again, we were speaking about this earlier on. Like, I could change these Q&A times into having something like Muslims call in, or you Muslims are wrong on the Trinity, come by and debate me or something. Fighting words sort of, and then it'll get attention. People will, you fix up a thumbnail, you drop something like that in, and then word spreads, and some people do that, and that's fine. That's what they do for their channels. I don't have an issue. But those are more fighting words. People want that kind of controversy and argument, and they'll click on those things, and you'll have those but I'm more interested in having conversations with people, like the one we were having on Tuesday with the American Cuban. He brought up a passage. He's like, hey, I think Mark and Luke are contradicting each other on this passage. And I was like, cool, let's look at it. I don't know. I don't think I answered his question per se, but I just said, hey, here are a number of possible counter responses to kind of your thinking that just immediately come to my mind. We went through that. That was a fun conversation. It was great. It was edifying. We were looking at some complicated parts of the Bible. Does it agree? Does it not agree? What qualifies it as a contradiction? That's what I'm about. Okay, I want to do learning together. I want to process this information with one another. But if I put up a video, and I think I probably have thumbnail stuff like that and titles of that sort, you know. There's softwares that actually generate titles for you and say things like, you know, 8 ways, or like, you'd never believe this, and something, you know. Sean says, why did you remove the last live streams? I didn't remove it, Sean. YouTube removed it. Okay. Here, I'll show you guys so you guys don't think I'm lying. Here. You see that? You see it says blocked and I can't monetize it. So sometimes you'll get something that says you can't monetize. So like you can monetize something, which is fine. I don't mind it. I don't mind me doing responses and it goes, oh, it's a copyright thing. You can't monetize it, or partially goes to them. But here's what this says. It's blocked. The video contains copyright material. As a result, it's been blocked worldwide. Why is it blocked worldwide? Well, because the video contains a segment of the video, at least in this case, contains Apple's introduction. That's the whole Mother Nature thing that they did that I was responding to. And so they blocked it. I could cut that whole section out and then go from there. But even if I go to videos here, see that? I was gonna post this right there. That was just a placeholder in regards to name, and this was real quick. I've never seen anything happen this quick. I've never seen a monetization thing this quick. This video got really quick. By the time it was processing, it was both ineligible and blocked, and it's worldwide because Apple has the rights to that stuff. And I don't have an issue with Apple having. It's just the thing is, for me, it would be really cool, like if they just, like, people are still gonna see your video, Apple, you know, and I'm just responding to it in a non advertising way, or I'm not criticizing Apple because of their products or something like that. I mean, I actually said a lot of good stuff in it about their products, but it is what it is. So Sean, you guys, most of the time I don't take down videos. Okay. Most of the time, like unless the stream is really lousy, I'll take it down. I'll be like, I'm not gonna have that back on. But if you see a stream of mine not appear after like 24 hours, that's most likely because it got some kind of a copyright thing, and YouTube doesn't want that up there, which is fine if I'm responding to other people. Mr. Jerome, how you doing? I can't hear you. Hello? Hello? Everything on my end looks fine. My internet says no audio for you. Why don't you call back in? Let's try that again, Jerome. Let's see what's going on. We'll figure this out, man. Jerome is taking fault. Am I making sense, by the way, you guys, especially some of you guys who aren't believers or atheists, or even you might even be fans of Derek. I don't know Derek again. Derek could be the nicest guy on the planet. We can get into like duking stuff out and accusing each other of various things. The thing is that, oh, hang on.
In a good place with a local church, usually aren't anchored, usually are obsessed. It's hurting other parts of their life. So this is where we actually all agree on, is like obsession with this stuff.
I gotta say, the first 6 minutes threw me off because I'm going,
so this is what we did. So we had this whole like just kind of railing into like all this sort of stuff.
Hey, can you hear me, Jerome? Oh, yes, you're on.
Right. Oh, good.
Hey,
good,
by
good.
the way, it seems like Ruslan called in to their stream right now.
Oh.
You okay?
My internet is bad, bro. This is not
What?
the one.
Jerome, what did you
Are
say? I didn't hear you.
serious? No. Dude. Okay, this is, I don't think this is gonna work. It's kind of like it goes on and off all the time, but I might have to wait till I get home to do
Your
this.
audio or my audio?
Mine.
Oh.
It's pretty bad.
Mm.
Like, I don't think you can
Are
hear
you not
everything
back
I'm
in
saying.
England?
So. No, I'm not. Not yet. So.
Are you missing the
Okay.
finer things of life? Hey, we've been there.
I go back on Tuesday, so
Yeah,
I
I've been
don't
there,
know.
man. Trust me. When I'm in Armenia, I'm
yeah.
like, how come this isn't working? And how come I can't get this and that? And it's like, oh, I'm not in America. That's why.
Yeah, I don't know how good it is on your end, but like you seem fine for me, but I'm
Your
not
voice
sure
is
how
coming
much
through
you're
fine to
hearing,
me.
so. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh. Never mind then, I guess.
Okay. We got the picture of St. Jerome up. So tell us, talk to us.
As usual. Man, I forgot what I was gonna say now. I wasn't even intending to talk to you, by the way. I was just trying to see if this actually worked. But,
What did you think about
yeah,
what
I
I
know,
said?
right?
Are you someone who actually watches Mythvision, Derek from Mythvision, regularly?
No, dude. Like I called in to test something, and I also wanted you to stop because like I don't like the guy very much. Like I mean, he's probably fine, but he just bores me, you know.
Mm.
I feel like he's saying something that's like fairly like evident to where like most of the things he says is like how do I phrase this? Like apologetics, like the conservative type, is not well represented in like academia because the academics that he's aware of don't really cite the people that you might be aware of, and I think there's just really obvious reasons for that, and he feels like pointing them out every time. And so he's just somebody that I don't watch, and I've been aware of him for at least a year now. Like I've known of him for way longer than most people have. I haven't really watched him since. So
Yeah, you know,
I mean,
the
he's
thing
fine.
for
But
me is you have to be fair to, like, if you're going to criticize someone for like academics aren't represented here and there, like people will generally like workplaces, because let's not forget that academia is a work context. and some people will be like, well, where am I going to be more comfortable working? Am I going to be a lot more comfortable working at Yale or Baylor, right? Am I going to be better fitted for Oxford or some other school? Like that's, and people have a right to that. People can say, hey, I can do it this way and that way. And then to respond and I guess put people on blast for that, or somehow like the content, the material that they're developing and producing isn't of like scholarly value or something like that because they have a bias. It's just extremely disrespectful and incorrect. So, what's his name from Oxford?
By the way, I'm not too sure. Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not too sure that's actually what's happening. At least I'm not too sure anyway. Because from what I know about like how these books are produced and all that, like usually in this like sort of academia space, your credibility is measured by like the amount of citations that you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what seems to happen is that what do I call them? I mean, he calls them like ivory tower scholars, right? And so like they're all like citing each other and are talking about each other's work, right? And
Correct.
the feeling that I get from glancing at his content is the conservative types aren't cited a lot, and this seems to mean that the general like scholarly field of like ancient what was there's a term for this, like ancient Near East, that's it, ancient Near Eastern like scholarly work, I guess.
Okay.
Isn't really like considering the conservative types because they don't really agree with them, right? And so like I think you're just making the point that like most of them are just not that relevant because they're not being cited a lot.
Yeah, but, well, there could be multiple reasons why somebody's cited and not cited.
Right, but like I think
academia, like I don't know how it is in England, but academia is ruthless. Like people's reputations get tarnished and ruined because they align themselves with it. Like it's very politicized. Right. So let's just say if I were to quote Richard Swinburne, that's the guy I was thinking about, by the way. So Richard Swinburne from Oxford, philosopher, very highly respected, knows his stuff, believes in God. And I'm going to write a paper and I quote Richard Swinburne on it. And I know the individuals that are, let's just say that like I'm working on a PhD and working on my dissertation. And I know one of my advisors is like really anti-theistic individual. Like I know guys who have gone through these experiences where they've refrained from quoting religious scholars or scholars who are religious because they knew one of their advisors would mark them down for it. Like that, people don't generally speak about these things for whatever reason. But that's a part of these conversations that should be had. And it would be unfair to say, well, why isn't Gary Habermas quoted on his research? Unless he's like in conservative circles. And it's not a good enough argument saying, well, because he's a fundamentalist Christian, that's why he's not quoted. Like his research isn't good enough. What you would really need to do is deal with his research and show us that his research is not good enough. Not because he's got a bias. Like you have a bias. Let's just say, right? Like you say the guy's a materialist or something like that. It's like, well, you have a bias and you don't want to assume God's existence, and therefore you're going to look at this data differently. That's a worldview question. That's fine, but we shouldn't be going after people for those reasons. What we should be looking at is like he makes a historical claim. Let's just say someone says, well, X, Y, and Z person said this and that, did that. Like deal with that. Did they? Did they not? Is the data good? Is there enough quotations by other people? Like whatever. Do your historical research. It's just not right, in my humble opinion.
so I wasn't even going to talk about this, but we might as well now. So do you think that the same I know when people are writing PhDs, do you think that same principle applies to people who are writing books?
No, because
Because I don't
publishers
think
are
it does.
weird, dude. Like and I mean this in regards to like Christian publishers, non-Christian publishers. It really depends. Like, so there's a number of ways it goes about it, right? Like, so a publisher might approach someone and say, "Hey, we want you to write a book on whatever subject, on the resurrection of Jesus." Let's just say, and then you go, "Cool. I'll write the book on the resurrection, and then they'll whatever pay you, and then they'll pay you the rest when you finish your book. Or it could be that you already have an interest in the matter and you're producing literature on that subject, and then you can go to your publishers and find them. Now, if you're like a well-known author, then you're going to have multiple publishers. It's a plane flying overhead. You're going to have multiple publishers kind of maybe vying, and there's contracts, sort of like, the sport you and I both enjoy. And people are going to give you various contracts. But even those contracts are weird. Like I reached out, I won't name this person. I reached out to a certain Christian apologist to get the rights to translate a certain book into Armenian. And he said to me, I'd love for you to translate into Armenian. I just don't have any authority to tell you can. And I was like, well, who can? It's like, well, the publisher. The publisher has all the rights. So the author of the book was completely fine with us translating the book, but the publishers weren't. Or the publishers will like demand like insane amounts of money. So, or like the requests really don't make sense to translate it into certain languages. Like if I were to translate into Armenian, they might be like, well, yeah, we want you to pay this much for the copyright license. Let's just say it's like $5,000 or $10,000. Plus we need you to print like 15,000 copies. And you kind of sit there and you go, man, that's like a $50,000 sort of thing you're asking me to do, and we don't have the ability to do that, so the book never gets translated. And then there's other people, there's other publishing companies where they go, yeah, like here's a minimal fee, we're not going to make any demands. So it really depends on, it depends on the publishers, it depends on who approached who, whether your book was ready and you were looking for people to publish it. I know guys who've written books and the publishers changed the titles of their books, and the author was very uncomfortable with the new title, but they had to go with it. So it's at the end of the day, it's a business, and money's gonna talk. Like publishers, even Christian publishers, are gonna say stuff like, right, like, what's gonna sell this book more? Arthur's very boring title, or this other title we came up with that's a lot more catchy and essentially clickbaity, where somebody's going to say, yeah, I'll buy that book. It's the same thing. It's exactly what we do on YouTube. Who's going to click on that video? For example, the conversation right now happening on Myth Vision, right? I have it on mute. It says, he's challenging everything we thought about the Bible. Really? Is he? Everything? Not really. So it's still clickbaity. But like, I think there's maybe a difference between like what could be actual clickbait versus something that provokes thought. Like I could make a video and title it 3 things you didn't know about Jesus. And maybe they're like 3 things that I think people generally, like it's not in the general knowledge. Like you got to study certain things for you to know these. And then make a video on it. Like that's going to, arouse curiosity. Someone's going to click on it. You create a pretty, say, visually pleasing thumbnail or something like that. And you're like good to go. But like if I title something like, and I would feel very guilty doing something like this, if the title to my video was something like knowing this about Jesus will make you leave Christianity. Like I just feel guilty about that. Even if it was the opposite of that, like knowing this about Jesus will make you a Christian. But that, unless you have like some crazy stuff that's never been spoken about, right? And then say like the videos about the resurrection.
Oh wow, okay.
That'd be weird, right? Like, to a certain extent, you can say yes, if you believe in the resurrection, you would become a Christian. Like I'm giving you an argument for resurrection, you become a Christian. but it's not something that the general populace doesn't know about Jesus. So I always think there's sort of like an ethical line that I personally am unwilling to cross, and I know sometimes if I cross it, I'll get the views, but I just don't do it. It's the equivalent of those. I think we've spoken about this before, whether with you or someone else, but it's the equivalent of having a those videos that come out, right? Like the secret to making $1 million in a month. Like it's like they're teaching you how to do like Amazon sales or something. It's like, come on, bro. Like yesterday I saw an ad where this guy was like, I will create, this was on Instagram, this ad I saw. It said, I will create a fully automated YouTube channel where you will be earning 6 figures a month. And I was like, no, you won't. You're making it seem like it's very easy. Like someone just goes through you and they're going to become millionaires in a year. You're making $100,000 a month. In a year, you've made $1 million through your automate. Like I know what you're going to do. You're essentially going to script stuff. You're going to have an AI generated script reader. You're going to throw some images and make it like develop videos for you, and then you're going to pump it out there. But like, really, is it going to be that good enough for people for your YouTube channel to be X, Y, and Z? So that those are the issues that I have, and I think there's just an ethical line between like what's considered lying and what's not. And as a Christian, first of all, I would say just as ethically, I have issues with it. Second of all, I would say as a Christian, I wouldn't do that. There's certain things I wouldn't do just because I'm a Christian, and maybe if I wasn't a Christian, I'd be okay with it. And yeah, and then that could end up impacting you a certain way, impacting your work a certain way. And you realize that the algorithm around you or the world around you, kind of the way YouTube functions, it actually encourages that sort of stuff. And you sort of have to fight against that and not do it. And that's not easy. In my opinion, you have to be a lot more creative to go against that sort of stuff. I remember, do you know that one guy that, oh man, I forget his name. So chat, tell us if you guys know that one guy that would come on like in these like very long-winded commercials. The commercial would be like 25 minutes in the YouTube videos. And he was always in like some garage somewhere next to some really expensive car. And he'd be like, and he would have the library behind him, like the one I do. But he would say, you know what the secret of my success is?
I know who you're talking about.
I read a book a day. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I know who that is. I don't know his name, though.
Anybody know his name? The I read one book a day guy.
He showed up like a lot a few years ago.
Dude, yeah, they shut him down because I think there were some issues with like, I don't want to say it. I don't want to get. I'm not very sure about this information that I'm about to say, but I think there was something I read about like some of the homes he was recording in were like rented for those projects. They were in his homes, but I could be wrong about that. Could be false information. Ty something. Yeah. He's right. I read a book a day. That's what I'm YouTubing right now. Ty Lopez. Yes. T-A-I Lopez. Like, okay, what kind of books are you reading a day is my question number one, as someone who reads books. Can you read that in a day? Maybe, if you didn't have a life. This is a 600-page book. Do you have kids? Do you have a wife? Do you eat? Do you go out? Now, if these are the sorts of books, this is a book on fundraising. If these are the sorts of books you're reading, this is a much easier book. It's 100 and some odd pages, pretty big writing, easy content, not much to process through. You're fine. Whatever, I can pick out a very technical philosophy book from my library or theology. I'm like, there's no way you're reading this in a day. You could read it in the sense of recognizing words, but you wouldn't be able to process the information. And so what you read in a day if you didn't understand what you read? It's pointless. So it's just hilarious to me. Like that sort of stuff. Like read a book a day, you'll be as successful as me. Like I read a book a day. My mentor told me read a book a day. Right? Like for me, you're not being truthful. And I think you're misleading people. And then you get people who follow you and they follow you for like 2 years. And then they look back on it and they go, man, I wasted 2 years of my life. And I paid for this stuff. Because a lot of them, I don't know whether Ty Lopez did this, but a lot of them were like, hey, come buy X, Y, and Z from me. And I'll teach you how to do the same. Hey, can I do something here? Can I let you go? Because Ruslan called in. I want to watch their interaction. And then I'll call it a day. Unless you have something to say. But I don't want to just cut you off.
I mean, I kind of... man, I forgot now. But yeah, I mean, about like the clickbait stuff, I don't really care. As long as it's like, as long as you're not saying something that's blatantly not on your video or something that's just blatantly false, then I mean, I don't really care too much. And as for the scholarship stuff, I'm not sure if I think that there's some sort of like anti-Christian bias or something, because they seem to like talk about and reference Christians all the time, like the people that Derek, like Mythvision Derek is talking about.
Yeah.
They talk about like Christians all the time, so I don't even think that there's some sort of like super bias against them, you know.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's an anti-Christian bias. What I'm saying is it's unfair to say William Lane Craig doesn't teach at Yale, therefore his scholarship should be called into question. That's what my issue is. You get what I'm saying? Like he doesn't need to teach at Yale.
I'm not sure if that's the criticism though.
I've watched and heard videos where that's exactly what the criticism was. All they're doing is stick.
What I think, what I hear about, I guess, is that the people who they don't like talking about, I guess, and don't like find very useful, are the types who are either very conservative in their views or come from institutions that like have statements of faith that require you to go in, that you need to have to go in, right? I think that's the criticism rather than just not being from a certain university.
I don't know if I see a difference there, but that's fine.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Maybe I didn't understand you properly.
I'm not sure I was to say this then. I don't know. Like, I don't think that the conservative types are not being cited because of where they come from. I feel like it's just like a bit simpler to say that their views are not really well respected by the actual community that's involved in all this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's so relative.
Because if that like wasn't the case, like if it was the case that like Christians, for example, were being like gate kept, like I can actually use the word gate kept properly, like gate kept from like this sort of discourse, right? Like we wouldn't be seeing people like, I don't know, like Lydia McGrew being talked about like favorably in these sorts of conversations, you know.
Sure.
So
maybe
really
she's saying stuff that's really good. No, what I'm saying is that it's relative in regards to the time period as well. It's like why should I give more credence to, say, an atheist Bible scholar because they're an atheist Bible scholar? So I give credence to someone like a Bart Ehrman because Bart Ehrman is a good scholar, even though we disagree with the conclusions. Okay? And then there's other people that I think are making leaps. They're making connections in their scholarship. They'll say things like, oh, Yahweh is one of the ancient pantheon of gods that the Israelites made monotheistic. These are claims that have been made on Derek's channel, by the way. And look, we found this archaeological dig where Yahweh is worshipped side by side to Asherah. And I look at that, and some people might look at that and go, wow, like their whole faith is rocked. And they're like, oh man, I didn't know this. Like the Israelites are worshiping God and his wife. Yahweh has a wife. What's going on here? You know? And I look at that and I go, wait, man, you're being very unfair with the content here, because the Bible literally has within it the ancient Israelites being syncretistic and committing idolatry by assigning a wife to Yahweh. It's in the Bible. And God judges them over this. And that's not because Yahweh has a wife and they made him monotheistic. That's because the people took their religion and messed it up. So we can have that stuff. But your archaeological find, I actually have a PowerPoint series where some of these digs are there. Where there's a replica temple in the north of Israel, where the tribe of Dan was, where in the replica temple, in the Holy of Holies, essentially there's two side-by-side altars to Yahweh and his wife. Like I studied and went through that stuff at an extremely conservative fundamentalist seminary because I had good professors and we dealt with that stuff and we looked at the biblical text. But you bring on a scholar who presents that one interpretation of the data and you title a video, did you know Yahweh had a wife? Or the Israelites changed a polytheistic deity to a monotheistic deity. You're not being very fair with what the data is. You're not being very fair with what the conversation is. And if a conservative scholar responds to that and says, no, that's not what's going on. Here's what's going on. Let's just say that they can decide that. And the response is something like, well, but you're trying to defend this stuff because you're a Christian apologist. Duh. Because I think you're doing your scholarship wrong. That's all I'm saying.
Like the thing is right, for people like me who are not like too I don't know, integrated into the sort of like ancient literature, like ancient like text discussion or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna wonder why like the people with the citations and the people who are like designated experts are gonna come out and say these things, and the people like you are gonna say this other thing. And then we're gonna wonder why the experts do not agree with you on your like take.
But experts don't
the
agree with each other on a lot
provided.
of stuff.
I'm aware, but like the way you like measure if something is like I don't know, not tenable. What's the word? I don't know. At least like non-fringe is how it's being interacted by the actual people who are doing the sort of thing, and then you measure that by citations, right?
Well,
Like you measure
no,
that
not
you
necessarily. What
measure
you
that
do,
by
no, I don't think it's just citations. You can get all sorts of wacky
well, no,
citations.
yeah, but I'm aware. Like you can cite, you can like cite a person for like, yeah, you have to cite a person to like say basically anything about them, right? But when I'm talking about citations, I'm talking about like in-depth ones, to where you cite somebody and then you interact with their argument like directly, and then you have like loads of things to say about it. And so what I think people like Derek are saying is that there's a reason why the people are not interacting like in depth with the people that you tend to agree with.
Yeah, and I want to know
And I
what the
think like
reason
the
is.
leading answer on that.
The reason's
No,
not that
I think the
easy,
leading
always.
answer. No, I think the leading answer that they tend to give is that they're not very good. And like I'm not gonna like be able to comment on if they are or not. I'm just gonna sit here and be like, there's people who study this stuff for their entire lives or spend most of their time on it. And there's just gonna be a reason why they're not interacting with these sorts of stuff, right? Like to make I don't know, like a different example. there's a reason why I guess biologists are not too concerned with. Actually, no, let me not say that. Let's say that there's a reason why like geologists are not that concerned with not geologists, cosmologists. They're not like that concerned with older views because they're like fringe, right? And there's a reason why people don't really talk about them that much outside of these really niche circles online or other things like that. And that's because the people who study this stuff don't consider their views very good. And I think the same thing is happening when
That's
it comes
fine,
to the
but
people that
100
they're
years
talking
ago,
to.
let's just say 100 years ago, the scholarship, for various reasons, was almost entirely, say, on the conservative side of things.
Exactly.
So then,
but
therefore,
they're
you
just going
want
to say
to,
that the
therefore, you want to
scholarship
ask a
advanced,
question.
right?
So hang on. Therefore, you want to ask a question as to what the shift was. What happened? Did the
Right. No,
information
but
that everybody was producing, was it like complete junk, where she's like, we just gave up on it? Was there an ideological shift in the academia where it just didn't allow for those things? Like, what happened? Something must have happened. And it's not always
again, I'm just
that the
gonna
information was bad or is bad or there's no support for it. Some of it is ideological.
yeah. See, I don't know. Again, I'm not like too integrated into this, so I'm not gonna be able to. I don't like saying things like this massive group of people had a massive ideological shift, and that's why they don't agree with these other previous positions that people held, right? It seems a bit weird to say, at least I don't know, in my opinion.
Why?
Like it seems like a lot simpler to say that like the amount of information that they had is just different,
Okay,
and
so let's use an
the
atheist
ways that
guy like
people are
Peter
leading.
Boghossian. I just started listening to his book, by the way, Manual for Creating Atheists. Peter Boghossian essentially quit his job from Portland State, I think. That's an atheist guy. Purely on ideological reasons. Because he didn't want to give in to the wokeism that was on his campus. Because he had to affirm X, Y, and Z. That's academia. There's another guy that's been a regular on Dave Rubin's podcast. I forget, he was at a liberal arts college. Seemed like he was a brilliant guy. Not a believer, atheist guy. Wokeism. Got fired. Jordan Peterson gets thrown into the conservative camp, but he's not. Losing his license, all because he doesn't use certain pronouns for students. How is that not ideological? Like, if we go down this road we're on, let's just like the way academia is flowing, and you get more professors who are like, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to use that kind of a pronoun. Brett Weinstein, that is the guy. Yes, thank you for that. There's a lot of ideological stuff on university campuses. If you don't conform yourself, like if you don't sign off on, say, the diversity whatever contract, you can't have a job there. So it goes from people actually losing their jobs, and then it flows into people actually applying for positions there. And some people might just not apply because they know they're not going to get a job because they're not going to agree with some parts of the contract. 20 years later, you go, oh, we're not dealing with any of the stuff those people have written because they're racist bigots. No, they're not. So what I'm saying is, if let's just say I'm a conservative Christian academician, right? And I work at a university, and at the university I was supposed to sign a statement of faith. And the statement of faith was like pretty orthodox, down middle of the road kind of statement. And then the school changed their policy, and they were like, well, you need to agree with this other ideological thing or even theological thing, right? Like we believe in universalism, all religions lead to God, and I go, well, I can't sign that. Like, well, we got to fire you because you're not agreeing with our statements, the statement of faith or whatever, like, and I lose my job over it. But future people who are conservative can't even apply for that position. That's the sort of stuff. A lot of conservative Bible colleges and seminaries who've become liberal now went through what I just exactly explained in regards to theological positions. They went from holding to that the Bible is the word of God, and the school or the organization changed their view on what that means, and people didn't sign off on it. So therefore, you had a loss of conservatives in those institutions, and then the liberals ended up, when I say liberal, I mean theologically liberal, ended up taking over the guiding and leading aspects of those schools, and they're good schools. They're well-founded schools. They were doing really, really well. And then now they're like full-on liberal when it comes to like so Harvard Divinity School, for example. Okay, nothing against Harvard Divinity School. I have friends who've gone there. Princeton Divinity School. Like they have certain statements of faith where somebody like I'm just throwing random names out, by the way, guys. Don't tell the people I said this from their names. I'm not. But let's just say someone like a William Lane Craig is being offered a job at, I said Harvard, so we'll go with Harvard Divinity School. But Harvard Divinity School wants him to sign a certain kind of document. And William Lane Craig says, well, I don't believe that. I don't think I can sign that in good conscience. And never signs it. And can't get a job there. And then you go, well, why isn't someone like a William Lane Craig teaching at Harvard? It has nothing to do with his academic work. It has to do with his theological positions.
Okay, I'm a bit confused because I don't think that like the examples you gave earlier are of like one of them was teaching philosophy and one of them was teaching psychology, and I don't know what Weinstein was doing, but I don't think the same sorts of things are happening when we're talking about like text examination by all these other people.
Unless there's faith statements, or if people are conservative. It's like a Dan Wallace.
Okay.
Right? Like textual critic might not be comfortable teaching at some institutions because of some of the other documents he needs to sign on to in order to teach at those institutions. Dude, there are contracts for this stuff. Like I taught for a couple of semesters at a Bible college, and this was not even a liberal versus conservative thing. They had in the contract that I was signing a certain theological position that I didn't hold to. And for me, it was not an issue. Like teaching the class, that subject wouldn't have even come up. But it was in the contract and I had to sign it. And so I signed it. I wrote what my theological position was. And then I had to write like a note next to it. Like, hey, here's kind of like, it doesn't make sense. And I'm kind of, I can see myself. I know what I can see myself changing positions on this issue. But I hold to it. Now, the administration and the guys that were hiring understood it. We had conversations about it, and they were like, okay, cool. Like, we get what you're saying. But I know for sure, 100%, there's places that I would not apply for a job because I know I wouldn't get the job based on my theological view, and that it has nothing to do with whether like I'm a Christian or they're Christians or something like that. They just don't hire people that hold to certain theological views. And I happen to hold some of them. Institutions just are like this.
Mm.
Right. So we have, Reverend Nick Quint is in here. And he holds to a view called annihilationism. There are fundamentalist conservative institutions that would not hire him to be a professor just because he holds to annihilationism. Even if, like, as far as I know, I could be wrong about this, but like, even if that meant him teaching math. Now, whether that's a right thing or a wrong thing, like we can have a dialogue about that, and I think there's good points to be made on the other side as to what private institutions are like and what they're allowed to do and not do. But I'm just saying, it's not always a matter of the scholarship of individuals or the rigor of their academic work or something like that. That is directly connected to where they have a job. That's all I'm saying. And it's unfair to say, well, why don't we see these guys teaching such and such a place? There's many reasons.
No, but again, I don't even think that's the argument, right? Okay, so first thing, I'm not sure, like all these examples of contracts where you have to sign them, like to express a particular like view on something. I know that you're you, so you're gonna have like a different example than most people do. But whenever I hear about these examples, they're only always about Christians, right? And like getting people to sign contracts to say, I believe this, I believe this, I believe this other thing, right? I never hear about any other sort of people doing this, like on paper anyway. So I'm not even sure it's happening anywhere else.
No, there are general statements of if you're teaching theology, that doesn't matter where you're teaching.
No, but
you're going to sign a general statement.
again, I'm not talking about like I learned I largely don't even care about like theology,
So you're cutting off, man.
right? But I'm talking about like in any other field. I believe this thing. That my internet sucks, dude.
So are you talking about like, oh,
Wait,
you're applying for a
Jameson?
math position somewhere?
Hello? No, I'm just talking like this entire time. I've only really been talking about the scholars that Myth Vision talks to, because you were talking about him earlier. Like the people, like the positions there, like they're possibly teaching in or even writing about. Like I don't think that they're signing contracts saying that I have to believe this thing.
If they're teaching at a theological school, they are. One of them actually complains that he's not allowed to teach in. One of them complained that he's not allowed to teach at conservative schools, and I was like, well, duh, because you don't believe in God. Why would a conservative, theologically conservative school hire you to be one of their professors when you're an atheist? Now, again, they might decide to do so, but if it's a private school, let's just say they have a right to do that. And I don't know what the British kind of system on this stuff is, but and vice versa. But again, it doesn't that doesn't mean your scholarly work is bad. It's just the institution has a right not to hire you.
That's the other thing I wanted to say, right? Like regardless of any of this, there are going to be like loads of people who get positions anyway, like at whatever institution that they have, and so like they're still going to be able to write whatever they have to say and put it in books, right? And like regardless of bias or contracts or anything else that you want to talk about, like there's still I'm just going off of what they're saying, right? Like there's still a large disparity between the conservatives that are respected and the non-conservatives that are respected within like that specific field, right?
And what the disparity being like, what the non-conservatives are respected more?
I mean, I guess by Christian standards, yeah, I guess. And so like the reason for that, I guess in their view, is just going to be because they're better, which is what I said before.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I would say they're not, and I would even challenge them whether those are the reasons why.
No, I know, I know, but you kind of like required to say that they're not.
No, I'm not.
But
no, I can say a Christian conservative scholar is bad if their scholarship is bad. or
No, I'm not saying individually. I'm talking about in general. I'm not talking about individually. Like obviously you can say that like Bart Ehrman is better than some random guy, right? I'm talking about in general about like what the views they have as a collective are.
Look, I'll give you an example. Theologically speaking, there's some South American thinkers. I think one of their last names is like Gutierrez, if I'm not mistaken. But they essentially take the biblical narrative and story and they assign it to Marxism, and they develop like a political ideology that they're saying the Bible's all about liberation. The Bible's all about the equality of the masses, X, Y, and Z. They're Marxist, politically Marxist. You got to deal with their stuff, and their stuff is popular. It's popular at a lot of these not so conservative institutions. Biblically, when you look at it in regards to the scholarship, it's trash. They're making stuff up. But they're popular. Why are they popular? I don't know. There could be 8 reasons why they're popular. I don't know why they're popular. Maybe they just had some friends who pumped their content out. I don't know. What I'm saying is that it doesn't translate because their writings are being dealt with. Let's just say their books are being dealt with at Yale and Harvard and X, Y, and Z. That doesn't mean what they're saying is good stuff. And as a matter of fact, when you put it next to scholars that disagree with them, you see that the stuff that they're saying is bad. They're completely changing the biblical narrative. So the Bible becomes something else.
See what I hate about this, right, is that this is a conversation I didn't really want to have in the first place, and
Yeah,
like
that's okay. I'm not arguing with you.
I'd have to like, you know, I again I know, but like when you say something, I feel like there could be a good response to it, but like I'm not aware of it because I don't study this stuff, right?
Sure.
So like it kind of annoys me a little bit. So, I know, like you might feel like slightly unchallenged, but
I'm not. I'm not doing this so you can challenge me stuff. We're talking. You're chilling in the motherland.
I don't know how much time you have left though. Like, I might
wanted to see because it seems like they squashed this issue. I kind of want to watch this. I do have to go soon because I got a meeting at 4:30.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Thanks, Jerome.
You said you had to go somewhere
Thanks for
like
calling
4
in.
or something. Cool.
Safe trip back home, man.
Cool. Appreciate it. See you later.
Okay, so I know Ruslan called in, but I haven't watched it. Some of you guys were paying attention to multiple streams at the same time, but I sort of want to see what the conversation was. Can I fast forward this?
Things in the ancient world. Okay, here he is.
All right.
Welcome.
Hey guys.
Hey, thank you. Look, the funerals, to the tombs, to feed their. Yeah, I know that Lucian.
My bad.
No, you're fine. Lucian, the poet, 2nd century critic, also, because it was custom. Interesting book if you want to check it out. It's called it's in the Greek world into the Roman, and why people would bring food or drink to the funerals, to the tombs, to feed their loved ones. Right. Lucian mocked this. Right. He mocked it because he's like, so he pretends like there's conversation happening between the ghost of the person. So how are you eating? You don't have a stomach, you know, like doing all sorts of funny things in the ancient world. Okay, here he is.
All right.
Welcome.
Hey guys.
Hey, thank you. Look, I want to say thanks for coming in and hanging out with us. I promise we're friendly. Even if
man. Listen, Derek, this is what I will say to you. I will say that you are by far the most gracious and gentle critiquer of my content, more so than a lot of Christian channels.
Really?
So kudos to you for being reasonable and being fair. I did not watch yesterday's video, so I don't know what
it's fair. Trust me, it's fair. I'm not being derogatory at all. I am taking jabs at understanding what I think is really going on, but you would do the same back to me, and I think that's fair.
And I'm looking forward to having you on the channel at some point. We'll coordinate that. I just had Tim from the New Evangelicals on, by the way. We did a 4.5-hour stream. I don't know if you know who that is.
I've heard of it, I think.
Yeah, he's like progressive Christianity, though he doesn't
more
like
of the quote unquote liberal Christians,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Okay, so real quick, I don't have a lot of time because Zach just came. My editors are very grateful for the praise that you gave them. So just
They do good.
okay. So first of all, I lean towards a post-millennial position. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
Yes, I
Mike
used to be one.
Jones from Inspiring Philosophy holds that position, right? So meaning that we view, I lean this way. I don't know, but we view a lot of revelation as already happened.
Right. So you're
We
kind of
hold
a partial preterist, correct?
partial preterist.
That was
Yes, exactly.
where I was at. That was where I was
Yeah,
at.
yeah, exactly. And so having said that, what happened was that topic randomly came up in one of our live streams, just like you guys are in a live stream. Someone said, what do you think about all the trumpet prophecy? So everything after 6 minutes is me and Zach ranting about people who are into this sort of stuff, usually aren't in a good place with the local church, usually aren't anchored, usually are obsessed. It's hurting other parts of their life. So this is where we actually all agree on, is like,
so yeah, okay, I gotta say the first 6 minutes threw me off because I'm going,
so this is what we did. So we had this whole like just kind of railing into like all this sort of stuff, right? And then we come in the next day and Zach is like, dude, let's sauce this up. Like people are interested into the end time stuff, and let's lean into that with the hope that we give them that last 3 minutes of basically telling them like, hey, don't obsess over this stuff. Get into a local church, get around some healthy people. This is not the way to go. If you're actually listening there, we talk about, I'm one of the only Christian creators online that talked about getting vaccinated, for example, right? Like, because I didn't think it was the mark of the beast. So we actually roast this sort of stuff all the time. The Jonathan Kahns, that whole stuff. So I fall in a very specific camp of where I view eschatology, though if I'm smart, if I'm a good YouTuber, I understand that people are talking about this. Let's lean into the tension, but ultimately try to drive them back to a healthy view. Yeah, we ultimately don't know. As Christians, we ultimately don't know. This is my position, and I've had Mike Jones on. I've had all kinds of people, post-millennial partial preterists on to talk about this sort of stuff. And I've publicly disagreed with people that sensationalize this stuff. But when it's an 8-minute video, we're intentionally, absolutely trying to get as many people in, get them in the video, with the hope of driving them to a more reasonable.
Like I said at the beginning, I can't envy the model. You have it's a brilliant model. Okay,
it's good content.
If you can't beat them, join them. Right.
Let me ask you this: is your you're pointing to the fall of the temple? Is that what the text?
Yes,
that's what I think. Because I actually think biblically that's what's, because we know there's no really debate on who the 666 is. Nero.
Sure.
So we already leveraged in.
Well, there is, but that's pretty much what most of the series.
Right. Some people disagree, but then you look at the 616 in the Latin, it still matches up with Nero in that language. So you're like, what's the odds of two different people matching up in the same text? Anyways, once we get there, we're like, okay, now we're already anchored in a time period. We're in the time of Nero, first century. 66 is when Nero went to war against Jerusalem. Temple falls in 7. So I think biblically it's accurate to say that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I would lean, is like a lot of the post-apocalyptic stuff that we see is actually Jesus pointing people to the destruction of the temple. That's why I lean. I don't know. And another thing, I just want to correct this, Derek. It's not that I'm against people who think deep theologically. I just am not a fundamentalist. I've never been a fundamentalist. I come from the neo-evangelical stream of Protestantism. So think Billy Graham, think Greg Laurie, that world, and not the Jerry Falwell, Bob Jones, which is where Brady comes from. Brady comes from a very fundamentalist, literal 6th day of creation. The Bible is the literal word of God.
I did too.
I believe Jesus is the word of God. I believe the Bible is also the word of God, but in the sense that it's the inspired inerrant text. I don't view it as all literal. I don't view all of it as a scientific textbook. And so this is where I get a lot of pushback as well, because I don't hold to a literal 6 days of creation, for example. So that's when I push back against Brady, it's because I often see the pattern of radical, hardcore fundamentalists who deconvert because they were fundamentalists. They didn't hold a neo-evangelical, historic, like you said, Catholics aren't obsessing over this stuff. Eastern Orthodox, Ethiopian Orthodox, they don't obsess over this sort of stuff because it's a more robust, in my opinion, a more robust view of the faith. And if you go back to seeing the Puritans and the post-millennials in that world, the Charles Spurgeon, the C.S. Lewis's, the J.R.R. Tolkien's, that's kind of the stream that I'm coming from, not this. But I am going to be shrewd and lean into some of the sensational stuff, absolutely, because with the hope that we get people into the... That's right.
We were just saying this at the beginning, so we're on the same page. I have to title stuff. Sure,
absolutely. And this is a good stream. You titled this well. You made a great thumb line. I'm not taking offense to it. I think you got me here. People are sending it to me.
Did you see your eye? I got
it's genius with the it's great. So you get it. I get it, right? But I just wanted to clarify that because I think so, and that's what me and Tim just talked about. Like, hey man, the overlap of fundamentalism and neo-evangelicalism has done this, and it's very confusing, but they're very distinct. Calvary Chapel and Greg Laurie are not the same as a lot of the stuff that's hardcore Calvinist, hardcore reform fundamentalism. They're just not the same. They're very different. And even though Calvary Chapel has dropped the ball on some of this stuff as well, Chuck Smith and some of that stuff, but it's a very different stream, how it engages with culture, science, media, all these different things. So I just come from a different stream of it. Some people would criticize that aspect, but anyway, I just wanted to be clear. I didn't want to interrupt your guys' stream. But
no, this isn't. I mean, the stream literally is, we've been bringing up your videos. Yesterday I did the Sodom and Gomorrah. You can't interrupt it. You're like the guy on the thumbnail, but
thank you.
It wasn't, I didn't want to only be focused on you because I told Neil, hey, bring any videos because there's others who do this, but I did misunderstand this whole video. I read and I watched it. Now I heard at the end some of your criticisms and I thought, Well, where does he stand? Because I didn't get the context. You did a stream, I guess, that wasn't this video on this, and that's where I missed it. But I will say, obviously, on the Sodom and Gomorrah one, I do think that one, like if we played that through, I would disagree with that one.
Yeah, I got to go back and watch it. That was a video of, so I went to Israel recently, and I went to the city of David, and I went to the old city of Jerusalem, which, by the way, my Armenian people still control a quarter of the old city. Shout out to all my Armenians. Right. And I went and I saw a lot of the archaeology and the proof of Pontius Pilate and all these sorts of things. So there's a lot of archaeology to support the biblical narrative. And then that video is me reacting to Pints with Acquaintance sitting down with someone, and Pints with Acquaintance is a Catholic YouTuber. I like his stuff. People get mad at me because I'm friendly with Catholics. So that's what that video was about, and just reacting to that and pulling up a couple articles. But yeah, it's leaning into tension, creating conflict in those sorts of conversations. But from my vantage point, as someone that just was in Israel a couple months ago, I do think archaeology testifies to a lot of the stuff in the Bible. I would have to watch the rest of your video to
go watch that, because I'm dealing. The guy's an archaeologist, and I'm sure he would. Most archaeologists, I imagine, who aren't like going out of their way to try and like make this somehow prove, they would probably be in line with most of what he said. I mean, this region, geographical region, is where there's lots of sulfur already. I mean, it's a natural place where you would have fire. It's like the way I put it yesterday on the stream was, remember when New Orleans came out and everyone said it was the gays in California that caused the flooding? Well, in reality, if there's natural phenomena happening in this region, the explanation is pretty simple. And later in the stream, I mean, we won't have time with you on here, but I'm going to be showing another story that kind of shows you where I think the genre is, like what kind of genre we're dealing with Lot. And if you're flexible in that kind of thinking, then you might actually say, hey, okay, I think that this is not literal. Maybe I think these, like I said, these places are being mentioned. Look at Pontius Pilate. You were right there at the temple wall, I'm sure, right? Well, not the temple wall, but the city wall right there.
The city wall. We were there at the port city, right? where his palace was, at the port city. I forgot where
exactly.
That was.
Right there on the outside is a real nice little natural step up, and that's where he would have judged. If you take the Gospels as this is exactly what happened, then this would have been the spot where Jesus would have been judged. We're in agreement if this is what is accurately there. What I do is I say there's realisms, what we call verisimilitude, that big word of like people, places, and things are found in literature that is littered with legend or myth and may not fit this is exactly historically what actually happened. So we might approach this completely different in terms of our conclusions, but I do think you're going to find things that match this literature geographically, but you could do that with Homer. You could do that with the Odyssey or the Iliad or Virgil's Aeneid. You can do it with literature that we know we're not reading this as literal, but there's lessons to be learned from this. So I'm not trying to be the atheist that runs around and goes, screw the Bible, or like tries to. I really do think there's some lessons we can learn from the ancients, but I also think that it's being misunderstood.
Yeah, I think there's aspects that I believe are literal. There's aspects and events that I think are literal, and then there's aspects that I think are never intended.
Okay, so that's beyond kind of they squashed it. Good for them. I think what Derek was doing, because I watched his stream yesterday on the Sodom and Gomorrah thing, not the whole thing. I watched part of it, and then today when I saw him talking about Ruslan again. I actually sent Ruslan the link, and I was like, "This dude's talking to you, talking about you again." So I'm glad he called in and they had that conversation. Well, Jerome, thanks for calling in. Appreciate it, folks. Tomorrow I'm going out of town. I'm going to be out of town for tomorrow to Sunday. I'm hoping and planning on doing a stream from my phone on the road. Hopefully that'll work with some friends in a car going somewhere. So do I think YouTube will take Arthur's current stream down to? No, I don't think YouTube will. The only way YouTube will take this down would be if Myth Vision Derek complains to YouTube and says, I don't want this up there. That's the only way. YouTube took my video down because of Apple. Apple didn't want their content out there, so they copyrighted through YouTube, and nothing can happen. So it's on Derek if YouTube's going to take my thing down. Okay. Well, folks, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for being a part of the conversation. Take care. God bless you guys. I will see you guys hopefully tomorrow. If not, Monday.